Welcome, guys, to our weekly cyber and jersey article reviews. And for sure, please free to ask questions and share comments. And we always look forward to these insightful conversations that can help in embracing our professional skill set. And to share in our discussion today, we have two new guests. Many persons are accustomed to myself and Chris Carter. So this week we have Paul Robbins and Austin. So, guys, thanks for taking the time to share in our conversation today.
Thank you for having.
Awesome.
Absolutely. It's a
All
pleasure.
right. All right. So, let me quickly share screen so guys you're able to follow along in our conversation that we have for this week. Let me quickly just bring that article up. Okay, there's guys. So there we have the article that we're focusing on for this week. And no doubt there are a number of insights that we can garner from this particular article. And it says that what comes after the digital transformation, right? And this is an article written by Sue Poremba for the Security Intelligence. And in the article, she says that when COVID hit, companies had to accelerate their digital transformation process out of necessity. But now, almost 3 years after the initial shutdown, most organizations have embraced digital to the point where they are now maintaining new technologies rather than implementing more. Cybersecurity is a crucial component of a company's digital transformation, but have organizations stalled out on adapting new cybersecurity innovations, or is security a totally separate entity? What happens now? So there we have those questions. Those are the fundamental questions that she put forward from this article. And the article in itself is broken down into a number of sections. I mean, looking at the end of the digital transformation, then she goes on to look at cybersecurity and the digital transformation and cybersecurity in a post-digital transformation world. And our aim today is to basically assess this document from a risk perspective, a cybersecurity perspective. And for sure, these gentlemen are all from a cybersecurity, information security background. So before we actually start dissecting this article, guys, just thinking about it, can you share your own, experience, of this digital transformation that you have actually, experienced to date? What has it been like as it relates to digital transformation before we actually go into the article itself?
Yeah, so I'll jump in first. I mean, I think the challenge that, is the old adage, anyone who works in security, the challenge and the opportunity we have is the idea of, baking security in rather than layering it on afterwards. And I think that's one of the most companies, I think, that, post COVID or during COVID, because of the fact that a lot of knowledge workers had to work remotely. So again, you have a situation where people with devices all over the world accessing your network to interact to interact with data within an application. What could possibly go wrong? So I think the challenge that I've experienced and I continue to see is you kind of put the horse behind the cart, right? And then as the cart is starting to pull forward, you realize that we got to figure it out and do it the right way, because we didn't do it the right way at the onset, right? Whether it's because of speed, lack of experience, or lack of knowledge in the security industry. But normally that's what happens. There's a shiny new toy, or there's a reason or an impetus that causes you to shift rapidly. And in that rapid shift, security is often a stepchild. It's overlooked, it's forgotten, or it's just put to the side because it's not a priority. And with that comes a lot of challenges and opportunity for us to make things right um, after the fact.
Okay, great. Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I want to start by talking about the positives of digital transformation in our commerce world. When we have these conversations from a cybersecurity and GRC perspective, I even find myself saying, "Oh man, what are we going to do? This is terrible." Like whatever. But I think we as security professionals, and Chris, you kind of hit the word opportunity. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for commerce growth. I mean, the fact that we basically shut down the world and companies were able to survive because of digital transformation, fantastic. I think that's a great thing. But Chris, you also touched on another thing that I feel is very important is that when we had the 1.0 of networks being built with internet in mind, I'm of the opinion that we generally failed in that because we didn't follow something that's called security by design. And a lot of networks that were on premise were Frankenstein box, if you want to talk about it. But we have switches, we have routers, we have different technologies that are going in, but we didn't think about the security about it. This is actually a reboot to be able to say, hey, we can build security by design inside of our networks to be able to say, all right, we're hitting this 2.0 of the network, which is we're able to work all over the world, but now we can kind of hard reset and build security inside of it. So that's my initial thought here.
I
Exactly.
love it. I love the
Uh,
yin and the yang. I'll be the bad guy. You'll be the good guy. I'll go negative.
No, because you brought up. I think you brought up, Chris. The most important thing is that yes, it is a challenge. I don't want to be rainbows and sunshines and lollipops. Like it is a challenge, but it's also, like you said, the opportunity to securely design a global network, whether you're home, whether you're at a coffee shop, or whether you're in the office, to be able to really truly protect us in a very dangerous world.
Absolutely.
exactly.
Go ahead, Richie.
Sure. And for sure, I mean, I can also share my views. I mean, well, the experience so far is, I mean, I can actually recall when the pandemic itself started, and it was almost like instantaneous. You're asking yourself, where was all this investment? Where was all this money that management and businesses had all this time? And I mean, I've actually experienced where there have been a number of IT professionals within the industry, leaders who would necessarily need the support to implement certain control security programs. And it was almost like a fight to get these resources. Here came COVID, and it was like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to put. I saw applications, I saw things being done for, I mean, by certain organizations and companies that you would never um, experience in a long while under regular circumstances. So for sure, digital transformation has a number of value, and it does comes with its own challenges. And I mean, from a cybersecurity perspectives as well, as we recognize that within this digital transformation, a number of organizations, because of the nature of what COVID has done, versus rollout application, rollout team, rollout various new tool within the market, in order to keep up with the operations, regardless of the security risk that exists. But that is just a part of it for now, as we will dive in further into all of those issues for sure. All right. So as we look further to dissect this article a little bit further, um, Before I actually start to address each paragraph as we go along each section, guys, can you share your insights on the article itself in terms of what actually your perspective of the article? I mean, Paul, Kumar, Richard, Chris.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of summarized it well. But I think generally speaking, when we look at the article talking about the evolution of digital transformation, right, in organization and the impact that transformation has had on cybersecurity. Again, evil things or bad things that happen. It's funny. I'm here at RSA, and I stopped at the German booth yesterday, and I was talking. I was engaged with one of the folks from Germany. I said, um, some conversation went to Hitler. I said, Hitler was an evil genius. We still benefit from some of the things that Hitler did, right? The highway that we have today. If it wasn't for Hitler's crazy idea that if he can move his troops more rapidly via a road that's flat and it's fast and it's uninterrupted by stop signs or stoplights, then we wouldn't have the highway system today, right? Volkswagen constructed Ferdinand Porsche to create a car for that's affordable, right? Those concepts, even though they came from an evil person, they still exist today. Just like with COVID, right? It was a pandemic. A lot of people lost their lives, but what it did was it forced us as a right as a society to look at how we can move forward, right? Transfer how we do business on the internet, how we on top of that, it also presented us an opportunity to strengthen our cybersecurity posture. But guess what? The bad guys have also gotten smarter. Right? It's kind of like that yin and yang where evil things often um, result in I'm an optimist, right, or a realist. But I think evil things a lot of times present us with opportunities to be better human beings, to be better professionals, right, in moving, advancing the cause of humanity. And I think that's no difference within cybersecurity. And for me, that's what I get more out of this article than anything, right? There's also the emphasis on the need for organizations to reassess cybersecurity strategies and prioritize security, right, post digital transformation era.
Chris, that's a brilliant analogy, and I'm gonna steal that. So just letting you know, I'll pay you royalties for that. That was awesome. That was awesome. But to kind of add a thought around that, there's opportunity always in chaos and in crisis, and I think the organizations that were able to wrap their heads around that and just say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, those are the ones that won during pandemic, and those are the ones that are thriving post pandemic as well. The companies that were still resistant to change and looked at chaos and a crisis as a means to kind of just shut down completely and just not deal with it, those were the ones that didn't survive it. I mean, it's a very strong statement, but there were companies that didn't survive this situation due to the fact that they couldn't see the opportunity inside of crisis and conflict. So, this was a business exercise. We focus a lot in on the technology and everything like that. And yes, technology plays a part in it, but it really got to the core of the business of where they saw themselves growing and where they can keep on moving from that perspective. So, again, great analogy, and really, this to me is an exercise in, okay, we've been given this terrible situation. It's literally turned the world upside down, but how do we go with the tide and not against it to make sure that we're growing as a company and that we're keeping our data and our people secure?
That's a good point. I mean, looking at the article itself, it says that in March 2020, everything changed. If your organization wasn't accelerating its digital transformation process, it was falling behind. if it could survive at all. A report from Security found that 63% of organizations began to or hasten their digital transformation sooner than planned because of COVID-19, and 49% said that digital transformation was not a strategic priority before the pandemic, but quickly became one. Right, so that's one of the things that we're looking at in terms of that quick change. So in light of this, the question is, was security pushed aside during the pandemic in order to transform and to get business to adapt to the environment that existed at that point in time? Was it more about having your business up and running, functional, meeting the demands of your customers, your clients, in light of without regards for cybersecurity risk?
Yeah,
So
I would say we would. Okay. Oh, go ahead. You're good.
Go ahead, Paul. No, can you scroll
Oh,
back
no.
up and just scroll back up, Rich?
Okay, sure.
This is one point I wanted to bring out. I took umbrage with the end of digital transformation. I don't think it's never going to stop, right? I disagree with that sub bullet point there. Like, digital transformation is a continuous journey, and it's never going to stop. But I think so that's one thing I wanted to call out, and I actually got distracted because I was so fixated on that. But with the fact that we're continuously improving, we're continuously changing, we're continuously adapting, adjusting, overcoming, and things like that. I wouldn't say security was pushed aside. I would say it was deprioritized. Right? Why was it deprioritized? There are a number of reasons why you would say it was deprioritized. The business had to move fast out of necessity. The business had to ensure that it was up and running. The business had to protect its revenue stream. It had to protect its reputation. It has to ensure that it stayed compliant with regulatory, whatever is needed. And it also focused on survival. I mentioned that earlier. How do we survive? Down the torpedoes, charge ahead. How are we going to get through this? And because of those facts and probably a million others, successful businesses often they look at what's ahead and they make decisions based on right information in front of them and based on the necessity to stay relevant, current, and to survive. Right? And they're household names. I'm fortunate enough to work with companies that if I said the first three letters of the companies, that you would know exactly who that company is. And they have a lot of challenges, right? They're delivering food to your house. You're buying stuff in their grocery store. You depend on them for critical services, and a lot of times there are challenges that they're going through, but they have strong leadership and they have good communication with different folks within the organization, and they're making it happen. So yes, digital security was kind of deprioritized, but it's out of the necessity to stay relevant, current, and to survive.
Yeah. I think, the word "the end," I also take umbrage with that too, because that is a common thought for businesses when it comes to cybersecurity. It's like, if I do this, I do that, I do this, then I'm 100% secure and I don't have to worry about cybersecurity anymore, which is, you're starting to see a groundswell of, and I've adopted it to where I no longer say cybersecurity, but I say cyber resiliency, because not to be a negative person, but what's going to happen when the next COVID happens? It may not be a pandemic. It may be an electrical grid that's taken out. It may be, if you live in an earthquake area, a major earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado. This is an ongoing thing. So, how does a company never have March 2020 ever happen again? And if it does, and when it does, when the next thing comes, how are we prepared to get business up going as quick as possible in a safe way? When you talk about how people responded, I'll take a 2-year snapshot. So in the beginning, it was all about survival. It wasn't a secure by design way of those 49% of the people that didn't have this on the radar, and then they had to build things in. But I think after 12 months of that, people took a step back and they said, oh my goodness, I have workers that are at home that are using personal devices to access corporate applications and corporate data. And that same personal device is used for their kid to play Fortnite on, or to use for Twitch. They started to now think about that. So now now we're in that 12-month frame right now, to where it's like, okay, we had to do this to survive, but now how do we kind of go back, put the locks on the doors, put the Ring cameras on the front door, and protect what it is that we're going to do? And that's really important for organizations, again, for the survival of organizations, to now securely design a very chaotic and very feverish situation of where they had to survive that initial blow.
Exactly. And I think also in the midst of all of this is the fact that digital transformation is also a particular skill set. It requires a certain design, a certain approach, a certain strategy to be implemented efficiently and effectively. And I think what happened in all of this, what I recognized, with some companies, is that they did not see this as per se digital transformation. It was, we have a situation dealing with, what do we do? How do we operate to deal with what is happening currently? And I think that is what happened for a number of companies, recognizing that they had to make a change if they wanted to remain, productive against the pandemic situation. So it within the article itself, it further goes on to look at, let me see, further goes on to, okay, there we have. And that's a good note as well. I was actually looking at that subtopic, the end of digital transformation. So for sure, we will never be seeing the end of, for sure, the pace at which it is being done might be lapsing, but it will never be out of focus, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't even get a chance to touch on, I know we have about 4 minutes left in the conversation, is that, the role of third party, right? Your third party suppliers, whether it's just, supply chain, on the supply chain side, or on just basically, you run a mom and pop shop that sells water, right? Who provides your bottle? Who provides the water? Bottles of water. What do their security posture look like, right? So I think, what one of the final points in the article that really resonated with me is that organizations should now, I think she said should, not must. In my opinion, I would use a lot stronger language. That they must now prioritize maintaining, and I would say securing their digital infrastructure, right? And I think cybersecurity has to remain a relevant part of that discussion, right? As companies continue to transform, as they continue to do business and generate additional revenues, cybersecurity has to be a value-added component in those discussions, in those initiatives, right? So a CISO's role, we've often talked about this, the role of the CISO in the security organization must move at the speed of business to ensure that they're enabling the business to, operate and having security as an afterthought. It's just basic, right? Basic things that I think security has to evolve, and there has to be security transformation that runs parallel with digital transformation to enable the business to be successful.
Yeah, and Chris, we that's how we do business already, which is, it's always kind of dumbfounded me as to why cybersecurity, cyber resiliency, whatever we want to call it, has lagged for so long, because we build these in operations, we build these in sales, we build these in marketing. All other aspects of the business have to go along with the speed of the business that is taking place. It really, it's amazing to have conversation with executives that can't wrap their head around the fact that, especially around supply chain, which really took the biggest hit during pandemic, of having secure controls, secure processes, secure policies and procedures in place to go at the speed of business to help it out. Cybersecurity is no longer a business inhibitor; it's a business enabler. You and organizations that don't realize that are going to struggle in perpetuity because they don't understand that it's actually an enabler. People are like, oh, well, why are you blocking this? Or why do I have to, get a 6-digit code for multi-factor authentication? It's like, well, here's the explanation as to why. It's not to make your life miserable. It's not to, slow you down. But if this information is leaked to criminals, we shut our doors and no one gets paid. Like, it's that serious. So if that's going to be a problem for you, then whatever. I equate it to, it's the reason why we have key passes and actual physical keys for our front doors of our offices. Nobody challenges that. Oh, I have a lock on my door in my office. I don't want a lock on my door. It takes me 10 extra seconds to turn the key into it. We don't argue that. We got to get the same mindset in our space for people to understand the same security measures need to be put in place, or it can cause catastrophic damages to our organization.
That's a great point there. And there are so many valid points from this article itself. I mean, our time period does not allow us to really break this apart, entirely, in terms of where we want to go. But those two quick questions, guys, is how does security leaders, under the pressure, one of the points that came from the article is that security leaders were actually placed, under the pressure from the executives management to roll out all of these necessary applications to meet our security various services to meet the demand of what was happening with the pandemic. From a cyber risk perspective, how it is that security leaders deal with this sort of pressure in light of the risks that exist. I think that's one of the big things, that challenges that exist.
Yeah. Security leaders need to get better at talking about the business. We defact into zeros and ones and bits and bytes and subnets and 255 dot whatever. And the business, it's like talking English and Spanish, in understanding of it. Security leaders really need to take the time and know the business that they are protecting and talk to the business piece of it. Why are we implementing this control? Why are we implementing this technology? Why do we have to do this? Don't talk about the technical aspect of it. Oh, well, our servers will blow up. It doesn't compute with the business. But if you talk about and say, hey, this could cause us to lose $300,000 an hour because we are hard down, the business can then wrap their heads around that. So I really challenge cybersecurity leaders to be better at talking about the business and the business impacts of it, not just the technology aspect of it.
Yes, exactly, for sure. So, guys, if you have no further input, then that's a wrap for this week's Cyber and GRC weekly review. It was indeed a insightful conversation, and as usual, there is always so much for us to discuss that can actually add value to us as security professionals. So, guys, until next week, stay tuned, stay connected for more reviews.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye,
Cheers.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Here.